Hey everybody, it's Tony Flath, T-Man Speaks on social media. And I'm here today doing another talk with T-Man. And I'm excited to have Avrohom Gottheil. How you doing, Avrohom?
I'm doing fantastic, T-Man.
Awesome. Well, this is so great. We've been back and forth on social media, in the cybersecurity space, back and forth through community chat groups, and certainly started to engage. And you reached out to me about being on each other's show, and I certainly appreciate that. So excited to have you, with the chat today. And Avrohom comes from a background in telco as well. He's had 20 years in, both from doing dev on unified communications with Avaya. He's certainly been in the business development side, so he's done some of that, and we've got that crossover, and now doing some really interesting stuff with Ask the CEO. And Ask the CEO you can find on iTunes, you'll see it on YouTube, you'll see some stuff shared across social media like Twitter. That's how we got engaged. So Avrohom, I'm really excited to have you on the chat today. So let's start a little bit about where you're at, the background that brought you to what you're doing, and I'm loving to hear the story.
Yeah, and Tony, thank you so much for having you on the show. Thank you so much for having me on the show. I really appreciate that, and it's a real pleasure to be on here.
You bet.
So with regards to my story, where I'm at, like you mentioned, I'm working with Ask the CEO right now, and what Ask the CEO is, it's a community of it's an online community of thought leaders. Okay, so the thought leaders in technology. It's a place where people can come to learn about the latest trends of technology without being bombarded with a sales pitch, a call to action, or industry jargon. And I'll give you my backstory of how this came to be. So as he mentioned, I come from a 20 plus year background in telecom. Over the last couple of years, telecom has been going through a bit of a change, to say it mildly. Yeah, and with cloud communications becoming very popular and widespread, businesses are, especially the small and medium businesses, they're falling away from the traditional PBX phone system, and that's where my expertise was in. So you mentioned Avaya, the big telco manufacturer. I worked for them for a number of years, for 9 years, and then I also had my consulting business for 12 years. And as Avaya started to get into some financial problems, that affected the Avaya ecosystem. So the partners weren't selling as much because customers weren't buying as much, because there was word on the street that Avaya is going through some tough times. And over the last couple of years, my business was declining. Then this past year, they went through a bankruptcy. So when a manufacturer is bankrupt, the big enterprise customers aren't buying. The smaller customers are looking at the enterprise customers and going, hey, they're not buying, maybe I should hold back. And then of course the competition swoops down. So you're talking Cisco, ShoreTel, and all the other smaller tells converging on Avaya customers going, hey, buy our stuff. We're not going to leave you hanging like Avaya did.
Right.
So over the last couple of years, my business was declining, but when they went through that bankruptcy, it was like falling off a cliff. Sales just stopped flat. During this time, I was looking to reinvent myself. And like everybody else in telecom, I was looking into cloud communications. I mean, after all, it's a good reoccurring revenue model where instead of selling something one time, you sell something and it makes you money over time. The challenge was that every Joe Schmo on the street was selling hosted phone service. $25 a month or $19.99, you get this nice looking telephone and all these features and unlimited calling and so on and so on. So I had a lot to compete with, and I was starting out fresh that was the first time I considered myself as an entrepreneur. Up until that point, I was a consultant, and yes, technically I was an entrepreneur, but I treated it, and this was from my own inexperience, I treated it more as a job without a boss than really as a business. And what I mean by that was, I was very good at setting myself up with streams of work, but I didn't really actively look to grow this as a business. I just wanted to live comfortably. So once I ventured outside of my network, which was composed of Avaya partners, I found myself in new territory. I didn't really know the players in that industry. At the same time, the sales model was different. With what I was doing as a consultant, I was working with partners. It was an indirect sales model. Hey, I'll help you make the sale. I'll do the install for you. You get the sales commission, and we sort of partner on the deal that way. Over here, I'm doing everything myself, and I'm doing the direct sales, and that was something that I wasn't that familiar with. So put all this together in a new industry, not really so familiar or comfortable with the sales model, and I found myself in a major dilemma. Now, I was looking for a way to differentiate myself in this highly saturated market, and I was inspired by something I heard on a podcast from Gary Vaynerchuk. So many people in the entrepreneurial ecosystem are familiar with Gary. He is a self-made entrepreneur, immigrant from the Ukraine, I believe. He came to America when he was 3 years old. And he's basically a self-made entrepreneur, very inspirational speaker, and he's got great practical advice. And the thing that really connected with me was he was giving a scenario. Somebody wants to become a real estate agent.
Right.
All right. Rather than being just like every other real estate agent out there, I'm selling houses, here are my listings, pretty much doing the same thing that everybody else is doing. Why don't you set yourself apart? Leverage social media in order to position yourself as an authority. And how do you do that? Go out and interview shopkeepers, interview the stores, the local businesses, interview the neighbors maybe even, and people will see this and go, wow, so if I want to move into this neighborhood, I've got to speak to Joe because Joe knows everybody and everything. And if Joe tells me this is a great neighborhood, then I believe him and I trust him. So that connected with me, and I decided, you know what, I'm going to do that. I'm going to jump on social media, and I'm going to start interviewing business owners, and that's how I'll get known. So that was the first evolution of Ask the CEO. I wasn't really very focused in terms of what verticals I want to go after, what industries I want to go after. It was more of let's just get out there, get my name out there, and interview people. Now, the interesting thing is that many would call that unfocused, because I didn't really have a focus as to where I want to go with this, what I want to do with it, how I'm going to monetize, but it was just something I felt very driven to do. And that's very important when you're starting a business, and you may have a lot of self-doubt. You may be facing a lot of criticism from people, and you need to listen to that inner voice of yours that says, go after, do it. You may hear from people that have been successful, maybe business coaches that talk a lot about having a plan, having everything organized and put together.
Yep.
But the truth is, if I had everything put together, if I waited till I had everything put together, I would have never started. I didn't even know what I was doing, where I was going. It was just something I knew I wanted to do. So long story short, I did ask the CEO for a period of time, about a year. So right now we've just finished our second year.
Yep.
So a year into Ask the CEO, that was when the Avaya bankruptcy hit. And I'm thinking, okay, I got to do something different now. I need to find a new industry where I can plant my flag, preferably something that would enable me to leverage all the experience I've gained over 20 somewhat years in telecom and allow me to build upon that. And I decided upon IoT and artificial intelligence, that mix of IoT and AI. It made perfect sense to me because if you think about it, telecom is human-to-human communication and IoT is human-to-machine communication. Yep. So either way you look at it, you're communicating with someone or something. So I decided that's what I'm going to do. And I started doing business development with a company based out of Singapore. And it was at that point that I started to look for resources that would allow me to learn the industry. I didn't have money to pay for anybody or pay for an expert or pay for an education. I was flat broke.
Right.
So, as you know, there are lots of resources out there. There are videos on YouTube, there are webinars you can get, but somebody pays for those videos. So just by definition, those videos have an agenda.
Right.
I wanted pure, unadulterated expertise heard directly from an industry leader, an expert, somebody that's on the cutting edge so that I can learn what's happening right now, not what happened a year ago or 6 months ago. So I was fortunate that I interviewed one guest in IoT, and I had one episode on Ask the CEO on that, and I ran with it. I would take these walks and plug my earbuds in, and I would just listen to that episode over and over and over and over again. And it was kind of, it was almost like karma, where my own content was helping me learn an industry.
That's pretty awesome. That's
right?
Cool. Yeah, I love it.
And that's when it came to me, I can build this. There's a need for some kind of a community, a repository of this information, and it doesn't exist. That's Ask the CEO, and then that's when it came to me. That's what I should be focusing on. So I doubled down my efforts to bring on guests on IoT, on AI, on cybersecurity, autonomous vehicles. Pretty much all the cutting edge emerging technologies, and run with that.
Very cool.
So I built up the platform. I still didn't know where I wanted to go in terms of monetization, because after all, let's face it, as a content creator, we need to make a living. So eventually this thing's
got to make a living. That's right.
Got to make money, right?
Yeah, you got a lot of kids there. You better be working. Me too. Yeah.
So one of the things I did, it was actually one of the best things I did, was when I was going through a very difficult time in my history with I ran out of money, and I was in a crisis. What I decided to do was I took a break from podcasting, I took a break from networking, and I decided I'm going to focus on getting a job, fix my financial situation, and the business will happen whenever it'll happen. And that's what I did. And the interesting thing was that as soon as I took care of this problem and I got my finances straightened out, that's when the idea came to me about how to monetize Ask the CEO. And it was actually really simple. And what I'm working on towards that goal is basically, you get corporate sponsorships. They're going to fund the operations of Ask the CEO, and then all the businesses and all the people that are listening to the program, they get to benefit. And it's not like I need to monetize them, I need to charge people or anything like that, because that never agreed with me. I never liked the idea of charging startups or charging people to listen to my show. I wanted it to be free and available to everybody. So that was the idea that came to me, and the reason why I really liked that was because I come from the corporate world.
Yep.
So dealing with corporations is something I'm familiar with. It gives me energy. I love talking to companies such as Microsoft, IBM, Intel, Siemens. I get a lot of energy from that. And then in addition to that, we're also working on industry events.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. So when you go to an industry event, there's always somebody in a little corner there with a booth giving out doing live interviews. So that's another thing that is very popular, and that's something that I will be rolling out in the near future as well.
Nice. I like how when you were walking, you had that stop moment, and you're like, "Wait a minute, I'm learning from my own content." Like, that's a pretty good aha moment. I like that. So I know, you started out early days in that path, and kind of where I'm at with this Talk with T-Man, same kind of thing in the social media limelight, similar kind of story on interacting more via this communication method, probably a little different angles from where we're coming from. But what I'd really like to hear more with is, I've been seeing some episodes, saw the recent one there with the good Dr. JD, and some other one there you were talking about Microsoft and healthcare, and so along that way, and along where you're working at, where what's changed, and how have you kind of refocused or better focused in? I know you had a lot of great interaction from this whole healthcare piece. Maybe talk a little bit more for the viewers just to get a better understanding of that. Love to hear more on that.
Sure. And one of the things I really love about what I do is that I get to speak to these industry leaders and hear directly from them what's happening, what is the cutting edge, where you can't read about this in a book, and you can't hear about this anywhere else. And it's just something that really excites me. So just to give you a couple of examples, I recently interviewed David Holding, who is the Microsoft Azure Cloud industry leader for the healthcare industry. And we were talking about blockchain and how does blockchain fit in with healthcare. And he was telling me this fascinating solution that he's working on with a partner of his, doing provider credentialing verification on a blockchain. Now, in English, what that means is, sounds good, right?
Well, we both know a lot of jargon from telco and acronyms, right?
Yeah, exactly. What that means is, here in the United States, we have this healthcare system with health insurance. Some may argue that it's gotten worse over the years, but we'll leave that conversation aside. When you go to your doctor will send you a bill, okay? The doctor will also bill the health insurance. Now, the health insurance will only pay the doctor if the doctor has the proper credentials to perform this service, whatever they may deem that to be. These credentials need to be renewed every couple of years, and these the health insurance companies have a very archaic system of renewing provider credentials. What they do is they send you a fax, and hopefully your fax machine didn't jam, or hopefully somebody, your dog didn't walk away with the notice. And if you happen to get the notice, then you fax back your renewed credentials, and then somebody's got to take that from the fax machine, and hopefully their dog didn't chew up the fax. And then somebody's got to enter it in, and hopefully enter in the right information without any typos. And only then is your doctor or healthcare provider approved to perform this procedure. And then the doctor gets paid, and then based on whatever they pay the doctor, your bill is adjusted accordingly. Think of a hospital situation. A hospital scenario, right? They've got hundreds of doctors, and the figures that I've heard is that each one, the hospital bills out a doctor to the tune of about $7,500 a day. Okay. What I've heard is that it may take about 4 weeks or maybe even months to get these credentials renewed. So let's take $7,500 a day times, a month, 28 days.
Yep.
If your credentials expired on the health insurance company systems, how much does that amount to? Like $100,000, $150,000. I mean, it's a lot of money.
Right.
At the hospital's not able to bill. So what this company is doing, and I actually had the pleasure of interviewing them as well. I just got off an interview with them.
Oh, cool! Very cool. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's going to be coming out shortly. What they're doing is that they're automating this process where they're getting these credentials verified by a blockchain, so that all these transactions happen automatically and electronically. No more sending faxes back and forth, so that these providers are able to be renewed in the system in a timely manner.
Right.
So that's one healthcare application. Here's another interesting one. One of my favorite guests that I've had on is Ken Herron, who's the Chief Marketing Officer of Unified Inbox. Mm-hmm. And Unified Inbox is based out of Singapore. So we've got a nice international relationship. Ken is actually in Orlando. And I hope you don't mind me mentioning names. I'm just really passionate.
It's your time. I'm just facilitating. So yeah, that's fine. Plug away. Yeah.
So let's take something as mundane as, I don't know if mundane is the right word, as blood donation. All right. Now, how are you going to IoT enable blood?
Well, the whole vampire community wants to know.
the vampire, right? And we're going to add AI to it as well. So the vampire community is getting an upgrade to 21st century technology.
Well, they got us beat by years. We can only live a lifetime. They can live many.
So here's the deal. The American Red Cross runs about 500 blood donations per day in the United States. Now, I believe the statistics are that less than 38% of U.S. citizens are eligible to donate blood. Mm-hmm. Out of that 38%, only 7% have the universal O negative blood. Okay? Everybody wants the O negative because then you don't have to worry if you're low on, B positive and an A negative comes in, you've got it. So, they have all these blood donations or blood banks, I should say. The blood banks have certain procedures in place that when they run below a certain threshold, then they try to do blood drives to raise their supply. Well, what happens if you have many people coming in that need B negative and all you're getting is A positive? So those 500 blood drives you did today is a colossal waste of time. And not only that, you still have people that are in the hospital that need blood and they can't get the resources that they desperately need. So think about leveraging technology in order to solve this problem. The problem is not a lack of blood. The problem is getting to the right people. It's just like marketing, right?
So true. It's a very good point. Yeah.
You could market to the whole world. Just get on a megaphone and shout out to everybody. But what if nobody's interested in your, in your sphere of influence, right? You have to go to where your customers are at. So what they did was they worked up a solution where you would integrate these blood banks with IoT sensors, mm-hmm. so that as each level, so each category of blood, each blood type would fall beneath the acceptable threshold, it would trigger an alert to a CRM system that was AI enabled. And the AI would evaluate the blood supply. It would also check the geography of where all these registered donors are, and would solicit. It would do targeted solicitations to the volunteers that have that specific blood type. So think about it like this. You would get, now nobody reads emails and nobody answers phone calls, right? So if they start calling people, forget it. They're never going to get anybody. If they send emails, they're never going to get anybody. They've got this ingenious solution where they send it out on social media. So think of Facebook Messenger, WhatsApp, Twitter, Skype, even text messaging.
Yeah. So
it's messaging platform agnostic, but the idea is to move away from the most commonly abused messaging platforms and go to the ones where people want to be found on.
And where they are real time, because they might get to their email, they might get to their voicemail, but when they do, not like, oh my God, I got a bing on Twitter, I better look, right?
Yeah, I mean, like I know from my own experience, right? I got voicemails up the wazoo.
Oh, yeah.
Email, but every time you hit me on Twitter, I'm there. That's just how it works.
Yeah, it's social media.
So, right, so a tweet goes out to, hey, Tony, you've got A negative, and I don't know what you have, so don't. Right. Yeah, we've got all these, cyber thieves now taking notes. So, hey, Tony, you've got A negative. We desperately need A negative in your region. When can you come in? And all you got to do is reply to that tweet and go Thursday at 4:30, and AI would take that, post that on the blood donation center's calendar. You're booked for an appointment at 4:30 Thursday. Just come on in, and we'll see you then. So it just very streamlined, and using artificial intelligence together with IoT, they're able to provide the resources that these blood banks need without wasting all those resources, having to do all those unnecessary blood drives for getting an unknown type of blood.
And that's really a lot about what emerging tech is really about. And a lot of people fear it, especially on the robotics, automation, everything else like that. But when you really look at the enablement and the additional help that it will provide people, right? Like I saw this really cool thing with Helping Hands for a carpenter, and it's just an attachment that goes on and literally gives them an extra pair of hands. Well, I don't know if you've ever done renos. Oh, to have an extra set of hands. Geez, even if your face was itchy and you're in the middle of something, right? Or even when you want to high five yourself, you can double high five, right?
There you go. Let's take a fun one, a fun scenario. The last two were interesting ones, but let's discuss something.
Oh yeah, let's have the fun one. We all want that.
Everybody could connect to. So let's talk to all the single moms out there. You're a single mom. You need to get your kids to school on time. It's 7:30 in the morning, and school bus is coming in 5 minutes. You're the CEO of a cutting-edge IoT firm, so let's add some pressure to the mix. And you're scheduled to deliver a presentation to the board of directors in 1 hour. All right, now the clock's ticking. School bus is coming in 5 minutes. Your 10-year-old can't find his shoes. Your 7-year-old can't find his socks. You're rushing through the house, frantically gathering belongings, picking up socks, picking up shoes, packing lunches, and you just yell into your Alexa, make me a coffee.
There you go. And at the same time, you're replying to a tweet.
Right. So, just think about that for a second. This transaction was not about the coffee.
No.
It was about the sale of time.
Mm-hmm.
People nowadays are busier than ever before. You don't have time to wipe your nose, let alone eat breakfast all you want is a cup of coffee to get you through your morning.
Oh, we need our coffee.
That's all you need, right? And think of it, time is the new currency. And that's what's driving the mass adoption of voice in IoT. So from a consumer end, right, this poor frazzled mom, she just got back valuable time in her day through this voice-enabled, IoT-enabled coffee maker. So it's a fun scenario, it's a fun use case, but it had real value. But it goes further than that. Mm-hmm. Think of the manufacturer of this coffee maker. All right, we talked about some of the challenges I had in telecom and how the whole industry moved towards a recurring revenue model. I think every industry is.
Oh, they're all trying to look at MER, yeah.
Right?
Monthly recurring revenue, yeah.
Monthly recurring revenue, because, hey, you've got these really cool voice-enabled coffee makers. Well, let's face it, you're having a good month in September. October is going to be a dud. So how are you going to live in October? So ideally, what you want to do is find a creative way to have this coffee maker generate recurring revenue for you. Now, how do you do that? Well, let's think about it. Every time this mom orders a cup of coffee, what goes into that coffee? Well, coffee, right? She's got to use those little K-cups or whatever form of coffee, maybe coffee filters and cups. She's got to take her coffee with her in her car when she goes to her office. Mm-hmm. Well, this coffee maker knows every time she uses it. There's a saying, data is the new oil. Yep. Analytics is what's driving the whole industry. Mm-hmm. So let's say the package of those K-cups, and I'm throwing out the brand name, but I don't know what it's called generically. Let's say you get 100 in a box. Well, after about 85 cups of coffee, the coffee maker may send her a text message going, "Hey, Mary, I noticed that you're running low on your coffee supply. Amazon's got a sale this week. You get to save 25%. Would you like me to order one for you?" And she is so frazzled and busy. All she does is she replies back, "Yes!"
Because she can't even click a button. She's so busy.
She just tells Alexa, "Yeah, go ahead and order it." Next thing you know, a drone delivers it right to her doorstep before she even steps out of the house.
Yeah, no doubt.
So by IoT enabling that coffee maker, what you did was, as a manufacturer, you converted a single transaction to a new stream of revenue. And that's what I think is so exciting about this whole industry, and just about speaking to the industry leaders on a daily basis.
Absolutely. See the same thing. You know what? You can see the picture we've been joking about behind me, your home place there in New York, right? And I'm going there to talk with IBM Analytics about winning with artificial intelligence, hashtag win with AI, and it certainly is a lot about how things are emerging. And some things that I found interesting is they don't really even know what technology some things are going to be in 2 years from now, but they need people to get some skills in it. There's a dilemma.
Yeah, for sure. Technology changes every 15 minutes.
Yeah.
So let alone 2 years from now, if you think about it, what they've come out with over the last year, I mean, this stuff is science fiction. We've got
it is. We're in Star Trek is like, they had a lot of stuff
we've got
down.
Now that smile, that crack jokes. I'm not talking about Siri jokes. I'm talking about.
I saw they had a robotic. It was a person, and they could take blood out of it. They could do eye tests on it for medical training. They could do all these different things, and it's a robot. It's borderline creepy, but also certainly very helpful, right? And we're going to see more and more of that. So,
for sure.
So. Looking at you got some really exciting things on the go with what you're doing from your organization and you how you're forming Ask the CEO and making some headway with that, right? Well, what are some next steps you want to do and further yourself along that path?
Yeah, so my next steps, again, like I mentioned earlier, I'm currently speaking with a few companies about doing sponsorship. So I'm looking for big companies like Microsoft, like Siemens, like Intel, to work together with to sponsor content, so that as a content creator, I have the funding necessary in order to continue to provide this excellent content and also roll out additional offerings. So, like I mentioned with the industry events, and there may be some other programs I may be offering as well. I'm looking to collaborate. I'm working with a blog publisher. Looking to collaborate with people in complementary areas.
So hey, any big brands out there? He's open for hire. He's certainly willing to listen and check out his podcast. Check out YouTube. You'll certainly get some better insight. He's making a great message. So just in the last few minutes here, what's kind of a message, or some kind of message you want to leave out there with people, or I certainly would love to hear that.
Sure. What I would tell people, you may be an entrepreneur that's looking to start out, and you may have doubts because lots of people will criticize you and shoot down your idea. My message to you is believe in yourself. And I know that sounds cliche because, hey, there are like a million posts on LinkedIn and Twitter saying all that. But
yeah,
let me give you something more concrete. Like I mentioned earlier, when I started out with Ask the CEO, I didn't really know what I was doing. And I received a lot of flack and criticism about the direction I'm taking this because I didn't really know where I was going to go with this, but I kept at it. I'll give you an example from one of my hobbies, something that really inspires me. So,
yeah.
As you know,
I'm glad you brought it up. Yeah.
I live in New York. I don't just live in New York. I'm a New Yorker. I was born here. I lived here my whole life, and I'm probably not going to be moving anytime soon. But I hate winter. I hate cold winter.
You don't have to sell me on that in Edmonton, Alberta. Yeah.
Hey?
Yeah.
So I can't stand winter. I love tropics. I mean, every time I think of tropics, I think Miami. All January and February long, it's all I can think about. I got to get on the next plane to Miami. So, I'm not one to just stop when things seem impossible. And I was thinking, I want to bring the tropics here. So I feel very, whenever you look at a palm tree, right? How do you feel?
Oh, I want to drink with an umbrella, and I want to put my toes in sand. Yeah, I want to hear the water, and I want to not have my phone. Yeah.
Well, so I figured like this: if I can't live in the tropics, the next best thing is to bring it here, so that at least I feel like I'm in the tropics. I've got, and I kid you not, you saw my pictures.
I did, yeah.
16-foot banana trees on my front lawn.
How many trees do you have, banana trees?
Well, they started out as babies, all right? 2 little babies that I ordered online, something like bananatrees.com or something like that. I don't remember, years ago.
Yeah.
These things grow like weeds. I mean, literally.
Oh, really? That's bananas.
That's actually one of the things I love about them is that they grow really fast and they reproduce. So think of getting a good deal. I mean, as a New Yorker, I'm always looking for a bargain.
Sure, yeah.
You pay for 2 and you get 100. I mean, you can't get better than that. So these things are constantly reproducing. I'm giving them away to neighbors and things like that.
Well, if we can get a chance to get together, I'll have to have one of those delicious bananas. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, now we're going to be in mid-September soon, and this is a time when I'm going to give away my secret here. I actually dig them up before winter and bring them into the house. But we're not going to tell anybody the secret. So when I dig them up is when I give them away. I must have like, I don't know, 6 or something. I've got 4 really tall ones and then a bunch of little ones and mid-sized ones, various stages of growth. So I've got one that's already growing bananas. I have a second one where a flower emerged today, and that one's going to grow bananas. Now, think about it, right? You can't grow bananas in New York. It's impossible.
And you're
right?
doing it, yeah.
And that's what everybody's telling me. You're nuts. You're bananas. You're planting this thing. The thing's going to die. Well, the next year, it was still alive. And, oh, by the way, I have citrus as well. So I didn't just stop bananas. So, if you think about it, right, it's impossible by all conventional wisdom for this thing to grow in New York. We have harsh, cold winters. Yet I found a way to make it live, to make it thrive. And that's the inspiration I got, that no matter what you do, people are going to tell you, oh, you're stupid, that's impossible, or you don't know what you're doing. If you think about it, Thomas Edison, it took him 10,000 tries till he figured out how to make the light bulb. 10,000.
Well, yeah, that's true, and you're going to love this quick story. Speaking about growing this thing, it shouldn't grow. My dad has a green thumb, and he, when you cut the top of a pineapple off and you let it root when you put it in water?
Yep, I've done that.
Okay, he had done this and tried to get one to grow and got it to start growing, and I think it took him 20 years for that to actually produce in Edmonton, Alberta, in his window, in his room, in his front room, to actually grow a little mini pineapple.
I can relate to that.
Yeah, I knew you'd love that, yeah.
But I did. And that's the point, Well, I actually grew mine outside. But that's the point. Just because it's technically impossible to do something doesn't mean it's impossible to do it. You just need to find a way to do it.
It's
and
true.
If it's something that you're determined to do, something that you're driven to do, you'll do it. When I was starting out with Ask the CEO, it was really the same thing. I did not know how I was going to monetize it, nor did I care. Mm-hmm. And that's the point.
Well, and it's that purpose or that burning desire to go after something, knowing you're going to go after something, and pieces will start to fit in along the way. But I also think it's too about knowing what's right for you. And I mean, you look in the media, you look at Nike right now, you look at Colin Kaepernick. Wow, you mentioned that, and it just blows up. But you have to, you know the story a little more. Maybe you can get a little more insight into it. But at the core of it, and when you watch that 2-minute video that he, is along with the media side of it, it really is sticking to what you believe is right. That's what really makes you get to where you want to be.
And don't copy others. And that's another thing.
Yeah.
There's a term called imposter syndrome, right? Because you're trying to be someone else.
Like if I came on with the yarmulke today, right?
I'd say, hey, T-Man, who's your rabbi?
And I was like, welcome to Ask Tony or Ask the CEO, and you're like, whoa.
But it's not even about me. It's about you wouldn't feel right. It just wouldn't flow. Yeah. And it took me a while also. It took me 2 years to develop my routine, to develop my rhythm. A lot of the earlier episodes, and I keep them on there because I'm not shy about the fact that, hey, I wasn't always this good. I wasn't always this fluent. I made tons of mistakes. But you know what? I kept it there because I wanted people to be able to learn from what I've done and to realize that you don't have to be perfect. You just have to be you.
And you just go for it. Like this whole video thing, just push the button, man. Get at it, right? Brian Fanzo, I certainly, interact or follow along with him and what he's doing. It's really just getting that confidence to put your message out there. If you feel you got something to say, odds are someone's going to listen, and it might make a difference. So why not go for it? They say that, to me, it's like, it's better to try and fail than to not try at all, right?
And that is a very profound piece of advice, because people are afraid of failure. They're afraid of, what will people say about me? People will judge me. And I get it. It is real. I'll confess, for the longest time, until I got really good and I made traction, I didn't share with my friends, my close friends, what I'm doing. I kind of stayed anonymous.
Yeah. And you go in your office and they'd be like, "What are you doing?" "No, I'm not doing anything."
I'm not doing it, right? Because I didn't have that confidence. Like now, I'm like, "Hey, check out this tweet. Look what Microsoft said about me," and I'm proud of what I do, and because I have that confidence. But that's built up, and it's okay to take things slow and build up over time. So,
it is. Like, I'm really confident on a whole doing public presentations. I've been doing them for years. But even this video thing, there's been some little stuff I've put out that I've had to take over again 30 times, it felt like, right? Because it is a little awkward and you got to get used to it. But you going back to your point about those early days and just doing it and keeping them on there and going for it, you get more and more comfortable with it. You get more and more fluid with it, and you start getting to the point where you're talking to the machines like we're doing right now, right? Like,
and don't be afraid. That's the thing. Again, I want to share this because so many people out there are trying this, but they think, they look at somebody that's already further down the road and they go, "Oh my gosh, I'll never be like that. I'm like so awkward." Listen, I was awkward. Every time I would interview a guest right before, I would get so afraid. Like, "Oh my gosh, what if I screw up?" And sometimes while we're talking, I would just freeze up like, "Oh my gosh, I don't know what to say." And in reality, it was maybe 3 seconds, but in my mind, it was an eternity. And you know what? You're on video, so just edit it out and move on.
Yeah. I've done some pretty slick editing. You can edit out a lot of things. Right?
You edit out a lot of these mistakes. So, look, you just be you, and don't be afraid. You don't have to be perfect, and you don't have to get it right, and you don't have to have all the answers. If you feel driven to do it, do it. Be honest with yourself, but be confident. Trust yourself and go out and do it.
There you go. Just do it. Well, hey, Avrohom, thank you so much for being a guest today. This has been a fantastic, chat, and certainly look forward to staying engaged. And I'm looking forward to being a guest on your show.
Absolutely, Tony. Thank you so much for having me on here. I really enjoyed our chat, and I'm looking forward to bringing you on Ask the CEO.
Awesome. Thanks so much, and thanks for being a guest on Talk with T-Man. Have a great day, everybody. Bye now.